Right, welcome to the final bit of poetry from your collection. This is a quite a long chunk from Virgil's Aeneid, a big epic poem in Latin, probably the greatest Latin poem ever written, and one of the greatest poems ever written, really important in European civilization. He basically takes the two epics by Homer, the Odyssey and the Iliad, and sort of constructs a Roman version, a kind of Roman story, set still in Homer's world. So we're looking at the Trojan War and the aftermath of that, but starring Aeneas, who, despite being a Trojan, actually is a Roman hero because he ends up getting to Italy and founding a city there, from which eventually come Romulus and Remus and Rome itself. There's loads more I can say, but I won't. I'll just start us off. Here's a boat race. It's not a chariot race, it's a kind of metaphorical chariot race. It's a kind of version of a chariot race. It's described in chariot racing terms, but it is a boat race, and it's taking part at the funeral of Anchises, Aeneas' father. He dies at the end of book 3. Book 4 takes place. We can talk about that some other time. And in book 5, he gets away from where he was in book 4, gets to the place in Sicily where his father had died at the end of book 3, and then decides to, because it's a year later on the anniversary of his father's death, to hold some games, some funeral games they're called, in his father's honour. That was a usual thing for great Romans, to have some games in their honour at their funeral. So there are 4 ships. We'll go into who's captaining them, what their names are at some other point. But here we have the start of the race. So inde means then, and ubi is when. So then, when the clara tuba, those two words go together, you see how again adjectives come apart from their nouns quite a lot in poetry. The loud or clear trumpet gave it sound. So then, when the loud trumpet gave it sound, or gave the signal, they say here, but it means sound. Everybody, they all, omnes, and that's finibus suis. Again, that's now an adjective split from their starting position. Suis is there, and finibus is, in this particular context, their starting positions. So they all leapt forward, sped forward, prosilluerant. That's a kind of poetic form of errant, from their starting positions. Haud mora, without delay. There was no delay. Ferit aethera clamor, nauticus. Right. Clamor is shouting. You probably know that. Nauticus is nautical, to do with the sailors. So the sailors shouting, that's an adjective describing the clamor. Strikes the air. That's a funny Greek accusative with an alpha or an a on the end. The word ether comes from that, and ethereal. So the sailors shouting, the nautical shouting, strikes the air. You see the present tense used now for, it's called the historic present, is used to make it more vivid. So we began with gave the signal, perfect tense, sped forward, proceduerant, but now the shouting strikes the air, and we stay in the present tense for the rest of this section. And the freighter are the straits, which is the sea, the kind of bit of sea where they are. The sea churned up, versa, overturned. Adductis lacertis is by their arms, is lacertis. Adductis is sort of drawn up. Okay, so with their arms drawn up, the sea churned up, spumants, foams. Okay, that's quite a tricky bit there. Let's go over that again. So adductis lacertis is ablative, and it means with their arms drawn up, as in up to their chests. Okay, so they can row. Remember, these boats are not sailing ships, though they probably have sails, but they're driven by oar power. Okay, so with their arms drawn up, the sea foams, having been churned up. So they're off, basically. Okay, then we go on. Infindunt pariter sulcos. Okay, now pariter means sort of together or side by side. Infindunt, they cut furrows. That's like ploughing. It's a kind of metaphor from ploughing. So side by side together, they infindent, they cut sulcose furrows as if they're ploughing the ground, and totem, the whole, we'll see what it is in a minute, the whole ichor at the end, delayed, is the sea. Okay, the whole sea, they hisk it, gapes open, split open. Convulsum, that agrees with the sea, torn apart, having been torn apart by two things, by remis, by their oars, and by their by the three-pronged tridentibus. That trident is that. It's three teeth, isn't it? Literally, by the three-pronged prows, the rostra, the prows, the front bit of the ship. Okay, so just those last two lines again. Together, they split they split furrows. They cut furrows, and the whole sea is split open, churned up again, or torn apart by the oars and by the three-pronged beaks of the ships, the prows of the ships. So basically, a big noise, da-da-da, and then they all leap forward, the sailors all shout, and then the sea's all churned up, and the four ships go off together, side by side, turning up sort of furrows or churned up bits in the sea.